Good, you would be a terrible mom anyway. Those were the words my sister said to me in a hospital room while I was bleeding out the only pregnancy I had ever carried past 8 weeks. If you have ever had someone kick you when you were already broken, subscribe and tell me where you are watching from. My name is Elena. I am 34 years old, and I work as a pediatric occupational therapist. The day that changed everything was May 22nd, 2019, the day I miscarried at 12 weeks, and my sister Vanessa walked into my room with a smile that did not reach her eyes. But that cruelty did not come out of nowhere. When I was 16 and Vanessa was 14, I won a regional science fair with a project on neural development in premature infants. My parents threw a small dinner to celebrate. Vanessa waited until everyone was seated, then announced she had started her period that morning and needed to go to the hospital because she thought something was wrong. My mother left the table immediately. My father followed. I ate leftover lasagna alone and put my medal in a drawer. Vanessa was fine. She admitted years later she had lied just to see if she could pull focus. When I was 23 and applying to graduate programs, Vanessa called me at 2 a.m. on the night before my biggest interview. She was crying, saying she had been in a car accident and needed me to come get her 3 hours away. I drove through a rainstorm, missed my interview, and lost a scholarship worth $18,000. When I arrived, she was at a bar with friends laughing. She said she had changed her mind about needing help and forgot to call me back. When I was 30 and got engaged to my husband Marcus, Vanessa announced her own engagement 2 weeks later at our engagement party. She had been dating the guy for 6 weeks. She set her wedding date for 1 month before ours, then called it off 3 days before the ceremony. My parents lost the venue deposit of $4,500. She shrugged and said she had gotten cold feet. I spent my entire engagement helping my mother recover emotionally instead of planning my own wedding. That was the pattern. Vanessa needed to be the center no matter the cost. So, when I finally got pregnant in April 2019 after 2 years of trying, I did not tell her right away. I told my parents at 10 weeks. I told Marcus the day I saw the positive test. I told my best friend Iris on a Tuesday night over decaf tea in her kitchen. But I waited to tell Vanessa. I knew she would find a way to make it about her. On May 21st, 2019, I started spotting. It was light at first, just pink on the tissue. I called my doctor at 9:47 a.m., and she told me to come in for an ultrasound at 1 p.m. that afternoon. Marcus held my hand in the waiting room. The ultrasound tech went quiet, then excused herself. The doctor came in 6 minutes later and said there was no heartbeat. The baby had stopped growing at 11 weeks and 2 days. I felt my entire body go numb. They scheduled a dilation and curettage procedure for the next morning, May 22nd, at 7 a.m. I did not sleep that night. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling while Marcus held me and cried into my shoulder. At 5:30 a.m., we drove to the hospital in silence. I checked in at 6:14 a.m. They took me back at 6:52 a.m. The procedure lasted 38 minutes. When I woke up in recovery at 9:20 a.m., my mother was standing beside my bed. She was crying. She said she was so sorry. She said she had told Vanessa the night before because Vanessa had asked why Mom sounded upset on the phone, and she thought I would want my sister there for support. I closed my eyes and felt dread pool in my stomach. Vanessa walked in at 9:55 a.m. She was wearing a tight white dress and heels like she was going to brunch. She had a Starbucks cup in one hand. She looked at me in the hospital bed, looked at the IV in my arm, looked at my swollen eyes and said, "Well, maybe it is for the best." I stared at her. My mother said, "Vanessa, not now." Vanessa shrugged. She took a sip of her coffee and said, "I am just saying, you have been so stressed with work, and you are not exactly young anymore. Your body probably knew you were not ready." Marcus stood up from the chair in the corner. He said, "You need to leave." Vanessa rolled her eyes. She looked at me and said, "Oh, come on, Elena. You have always been so sensitive. I am trying to make you feel better. Besides, good, you would be a terrible mom anyway." You can barely take care of yourself." The room went silent. My mother gasped. Marcus moved toward Vanessa, but I held up my hand. I looked at my sister and said, "Get out." She laughed. She said, "You are being dramatic." I said it again, louder. "Get out." Vanessa left. My mother followed her into the hallway. I could hear them arguing, my mother's voice low and urgent, Vanessa's voice high and defensive. I turned my face toward the wall and cried until a nurse came in and gave me something to help me sleep. I did not speak to Vanessa for 6 months after that. She sent one text 3 days later. It said, "You are really going to ice me out over a joke? Grow up." I blocked her number. My parents asked me to forgive her at Thanksgiving. I said no. Vanessa showed up to Christmas dinner pregnant. She was 12 weeks along. She announced it right after Grace, looking directly at me. My mother cried happy tears. My father opened champagne. I left before dessert. Vanessa had her baby in June 2020, a girl she named Lily. Vanessa posted about her constantly on social media, all pastel filters and captions about blessed motherhood. I muted her accounts. I sent a gift card when Lily was born and stayed away. Vanessa had a second baby in March 2022, a boy named Carter. By then I had moved on in some ways. Marcus and I had tried one round of IVF in late 2020. It did not work. We decided to stop trying and focus on each other, on our life as it was. I threw myself into my work with kids who needed help with motor skills and sensory processing. It was enough. I thought Vanessa was out of my life for good. Then, on August 9th, 2022, at 4:32 p.m., I got a call from a number I did not recognize. A woman said, "Is this Elena Marshall?" I said yes. She said, "My name is Deborah Tran. I am a caseworker with Child Protective Services in Jefferson County. I am calling about Lily and Carter Hoffman. We have them in emergency custody as of this afternoon. You are listed as their aunt and emergency contact. Are you aware of the situation?" My heart stopped. I said, "No, what happened?" Deborah said, "The children were removed from the home after a neighbor reported that they were left alone for over 14 hours. When deputies arrived, they found Lily, age 2, and Carter, age 5 months, in the apartment with no adult supervision. Lily was trying to feed Carter a bottle of spoiled milk. The apartment was in unsafe condition. Your sister and her boyfriend were located at a casino 4 hours away." I sat down hard on my kitchen floor. I said, "Are the kids okay?" Deborah said, "They are being evaluated at the hospital now. Lily is dehydrated and underweight. Carter has a severe diaper rash and possible developmental delays. We are looking for placement. I am calling to ask if you would be willing to take them on an emergency basis tonight." I looked at Marcus, who had just walked into the kitchen. I put the call on speaker. I said, "Yes, absolutely yes." Deborah said, "I need to run a preliminary background check and do a walkthrough of your home. Can I come by in the next 2 hours?" I said, "We will be here." She arrived at 6:18 p.m. with a clipboard and a calm, steady voice that made me feel like I was not drowning. She walked through our 3-bedroom house, asked about smoke detectors and medications and pets. We had none. We had a guest room that was basically empty. We had stable jobs and clean records. She made notes and said, "I will be back at 8 p.m. with the children." Marcus and I spent the next hour and 42 minutes in a panic. We drove to the store and bought diapers, wipes, formula, a pack-and-play crib, toddler clothes in size 2T, baby clothes in size 6 months, bottles, pacifiers, sippy cups, and a cart full of food we hoped a 2-year-old would eat. We spent $372 in 18 minutes. We set up the pack-and-play in the guest room. We put sheets on the toddler bed we ordered for same-day delivery. We stood in the middle of the room at 7:54 p.m. and looked at each other. Marcus said, "Are we really doing this?" I said, "We are." At 8:03 p.m., Deborah pulled into our driveway. She got out with a car seat in each hand. Lily was holding her finger. Carter was asleep. Lily had tangled brown hair and big eyes that looked too serious for a 2-year-old. She was wearing a stained pink shirt that was too small. Deborah brought them inside and set Carter's carrier on the couch. Lily looked around the room and said, "Where is Mama?" Deborah knelt down. She said, "Mama is going to be away for a little while. You are going to stay with your Aunt Elena and Uncle Marcus. They are going to take good care of you." Lily looked at me. I smiled and said, "Hi, Lily, I am your Aunt Elena. Are you hungry?" Lily nodded. I made her a peanut butter sandwich and poured a cup of milk. She ate like she had not seen food in days. Carter woke up crying. I picked him up and he felt so light, like a bird. His diaper was soaked through. I changed him and gave him a bottle. He drank 4 ounces and fell back asleep in my arms. Deborah watched all of this and took more notes. She said, "I will check in tomorrow. We have a court hearing scheduled for August 15th at 10 a.m. Your sister will have the chance to contest the removal. You should be there." I said, "I will be." She left. Marcus and I spent the rest of the night trying to get Lily to sleep. She cried for her mother until midnight, then finally passed out on the couch. I carried her to the toddler bed and sat beside her until I was sure she was breathing steady. I went into our bedroom and looked at Marcus. He said, "Your sister is going to lose her mind when she finds out you have them." I said, "I know." The next morning, at 9:47 a.m., my phone rang from a number I had blocked years ago. I unblocked it and answered. Vanessa screamed, "What the hell do you think you are doing?" I said, "Taking care of your kids." She said, "You had no right. You are not their mother. CPS had no right to call you." I said, "I am their emergency contact." "You put me down yourself." She went quiet for 3 seconds. Then she said, "That was a mistake. I want them back right now." I said, "That is not up to me. That is up to the court." She said, "You are loving this, are not you? You could not have your own kids, so you are stealing mine." I felt something crack open in my chest. I said, "I am not stealing anything. You left them alone for 14 hours. Lily is 2. Carter is 5 months old. What did you think was going to happen?" Vanessa said, "It was one time. My boyfriend and I needed a break. Lily is smart. She can handle it." I said, "She is too." Vanessa laughed, bitter and sharp. She said, "You have always been jealous of me. You have always wanted what I have. Well, guess what, Elena? You are still not their mom. You are just the backup. You are just the sad, desperate woman who could not keep a baby alive." I hung up. I sat on the edge of the bed and shook. Marcus came in and held me. I said, "I am not doing this for revenge. I am doing this because they need help." He said, "I know." I called Iris that afternoon. She came over at 7 p.m. with dinner and wine. She sat on the floor with Lily and built block towers while I fed Carter. When Lily was distracted, Iris looked at me and said, "You know this is going to get ugly." I said, "I know." She said, "You need to document everything. Every call, every text, every meal, every doctor visit. If you are serious about keeping them safe, you need to be ready for a war." I nodded. That night, I started what I called Operation Safe Harbor. I opened a binder. I printed the CPS report Deborah had emailed me. I started a log with dates, times, meals, sleep schedules, and every interaction with Vanessa. I took photos of Lily's 2 small clothes and Carter's diaper rash. I scheduled a pediatrician appointment for both kids on August 11th at 2 p.m. At that appointment, Dr. Patel examined both children. Lily weighed 23 pounds, which was in the 5th percentile for her age. She should have been closer to 30. Carter weighed 12 pounds at 5 months. He should have been closer to 16. Dr. Patel noted signs of neglect in her records: poor weight gain, untreated diaper rash, delayed milestones. She said, "I am mandated to report this to CPS, but it sounds like they are already aware." I said, "They are." She gave me referrals for early intervention services and a feeding specialist. I added all of it to the binder. On August 15th, 2022, at 10 a.m., I walked into the Jefferson County Family Courthouse. Vanessa was already there with a public defender. She looked exhausted, hair pulled back, no makeup. When she saw me, her face twisted. She said, "You have got some nerve." I did not answer. The hearing lasted 43 minutes. The judge was a woman in her 60s named Judge Callahan. She read the CPS report aloud. Vanessa cried and said it was a misunderstanding, that she had lost track of time, that her boyfriend had told her he arranged for a babysitter, but it fell through. Judge Callahan said, "Where was the babysitter?" Vanessa said, "I do not know. She did not show up." Judge Callahan said, "Did you call to check?" Vanessa said, "No." Judge Callahan said, "Did you return home when you realized no one was there?" Vanessa said nothing. Judge Callahan said, "The children will remain in the care of their aunt, Elena Hoffman Marshall, pending further review. You will be allowed supervised visitation twice a week for 1 hour each session. The next hearing is scheduled for October 10th, 2022. You are required to complete a parenting class and submit to random drug testing." Vanessa stood up. She said, "This is not fair. She is poisoning you against me." Judge Callahan looked at her. She said, "Ms. Hoffman, I suggest you focus on meeting the requirements I have set. This court is adjourned." Vanessa stormed out. I met with Deborah outside the courtroom. She said, "You did well. How are the kids?" I said, "They are okay. We have a pediatrician, a feeding plan, and early intervention starting next week." She smiled. She said, "You are doing everything right. I will be in touch." Over the next 8 weeks, I kept detailed records. Lily started eating regular meals. She gained 3 pounds. Carter started smiling. He rolled over for the first time on September 3rd. I wrote it all down. I took photos. I saved every receipt for diapers, food, clothes, co-pays. Vanessa attended 2 supervised visits, then stopped showing up. On October 10th, 2022, the court review happened. Vanessa did not attend. Her public defender said she was dealing with personal issues and requested more time. Judge Callahan said, "She has had 8 weeks. She has completed 0 hours of parenting class and missed 4 drug tests. Motion denied. Custody remains with the aunt. Next review in 6 months." That was when I made the decision. I called Deborah on October 12th and said, "I want to adopt them." She said, "That is a long process. It could take a year or more. Vanessa still has parental rights." I said, "I know, but I want to start." She said, "Then we need to move you from emergency placement to foster certification, and then we can file for adoption." I started the process that week. Marcus and I completed 30 hours of foster parent training. We had background checks, fingerprinting, financial reviews, home studies, and interviews. We met with a social worker named Karen 6 times. She asked about our marriage, our finances, our support system, our plan for the kids. On December 1st, 2022, we were certified. On December 15th, 2022, Deborah filed a petition to terminate Vanessa's parental rights. Vanessa did not respond for 3 weeks. Then, on January 8, 2023, she showed up at my house. It was 6:42 p.m. I was making dinner. Lily was playing with blocks in the living room. Carter was in a bouncer. The doorbell rang. I looked through the peephole and saw Vanessa. I opened the door but kept the chain on. I said, "You are not supposed to be here." She said, "I want to see my kids." I said, "You can see them at the supervised visits you keep skipping." She said, "I am their mother." I said, "Then act like it." She tried to push the door open. I held it firm. She said, "You are turning them against me. You are filling their heads with lies." I said, "Lily is too. Carter is 9 months old. I am feeding them and keeping them safe. That is all." She started crying. She said, "Please, Elena, I made a mistake. I am sorry. I am sorry for what I said at the hospital. I am sorry for everything. Just give me another chance." I felt something twist in my chest, but I did not open the door. I said, "This is not about me. This is about them. If you want a chance, show up to court. Do the classes. Pass the drug tests. Prove you can take care of them." She said, "I can, I will." I said, "Then do it." She left. She did not do it. On March 6, 2023, the termination hearing took place. Vanessa showed up this time. She had a new lawyer paid for by my parents. She looked clean, put together. She cried on the stand and said she loved her kids and had made a mistake but was ready to be a good mother. The lawyer asked, "Have you completed the parenting class?" She said, "I completed 4 of the 12 sessions." The lawyer asked, "Have you passed the required drug tests?" She said, "I missed a few, but the ones I took were clean." The lawyer asked, "How many did you miss?" She said, 5. The judge asked, "Out of how many?" She said, 7. Judge Callahan looked at her over her glasses. Then the county attorney presented evidence. They showed the CPS reports. They showed the missed visits. They showed my logs, the pediatrician records, the weight charts, the photos. They showed that Lily had gained 8 pounds in 7 months. They showed that Carter was now meeting milestones. They called me to the stand. I testified about the night they arrived. I testified about the diaper rash, the hunger, the fear in Lily's eyes. I testified about the routine we built, the stability, the progress. Vanessa's lawyer asked, "Is it true you suffered a miscarriage in 2019? I said, "Yes." He said, "Is it true your sister made a comment that upset you?" I said, "Yes." He said, "Is it possible you are using these children to get back at her?" I looked at him. I said, "No, I am using these children to keep them alive." The courtroom went silent. Judge Callahan called a recess. When we came back, she delivered her ruling. She said, "I have reviewed all the evidence. I have considered the testimony. It is clear that Ms. Hoffman has not met the requirements set by this court. It is also clear that these children are thriving in the care of their aunt. I am terminating parental rights effective immediately. Ms. Elena Marshall, you may proceed with the adoption." Vanessa screamed. She said, "You cannot do this. They are mine." Judge Callahan said, "They are children, not possessions." This court is adjourned. Security escorted Vanessa out. I sat in the courtroom and cried. Deborah hugged me. She said, "You did it." The adoption was finalized on June 22, 2023. We stood in front of Judge Callahan again, this time with Lily in a blue dress and Carter in a tiny suit. The judge signed the papers and said, "Congratulations. They are officially yours." Lily looked up at me and said, "Are you my mama now?" I knelt down and said, "If you want me to be." She nodded and hugged me. I became a mother that day, just not the way I thought I would. My parents stopped speaking to me after the adoption. They said I had destroyed the family. They said Vanessa was sick and needed help, not punishment. I said she had years to get help and chose not to. I have not spoken to them since. Vanessa sent one text on June 23, 2023. It said, "I hope you are happy. You took everything from me." I blocked her again. Iris asked me once if I felt guilty. I said no. I felt sad. I felt angry. I felt exhausted. But I did not feel guilty. Because every night, I read Lily and Carter a bedtime story from a book I bought in April 2019, when I was pregnant and hopeful. It is called The Family Book by Todd Parr. It talks about all the different ways families can look. I had packed it away after the miscarriage, shoved it in the back of a closet because it hurt to look at. I pulled it out the first week Lily and Carter were with us. Now I read it every night. Lily has it memorized. Carter pats the pages. On the last page, it says, "No matter what kind of family you have, every family is special." Lily always says, "That is us." And she is right. I learned that being a mother is not about biology. It is not about who gave birth. It is about who shows up. It is about who stays. Vanessa gave those kids life, but she did not give them safety. I did, and I would do it again. If you have ever had to choose between keeping the peace and doing what is right, leave a comment and tell me where you are watching from. Subscribe if you believe that love is not about blood. It is about who refuses to let you fall.